There comes a moment in every man's life, quiet, invisible, when the road splits. One path leads to comfort, the other into fire. Most turn back. You won't. This is not about motivation. Motivation fades. This is about mental toughness, self-discipline, and that unshakable decision to keep going when your mind screams stop. It's about pushing through mental fatigue, breaking inner resistance, and choosing action, especially when no one's watching. Today's not just another video, it's a call to rise, a challenge to every man who's tired of starting over. This is the guide for those ready to train their mind to move from thought to unstoppable action. Every second you hesitate is a second you hand your power away. In this video, we break down 8 principles rooted in Stoic philosophy, not abstract ideas, but tools you can use today. No fluff, no fantasy, just what works. You'll learn how to walk alone, build inner strength, create momentum, and force yourself to keep going, no matter how steep the climb. If you're serious about growth, subscribe now, hit the bell, and stay until the end. You won't hear hype, you'll hear truth, the kind that holds a mirror to your soul. Because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs men who refuse to quit. Let's begin. Step 1. Stand at the edge and choose the unfamiliar. 1. Stand at the edge, choose the unfamiliar. Every man arrives here eventually. Before him lies a silent split in the road. One direction offers safety, ease, the known. The other, chaos, resistance, growth. Most will hesitate, many will retreat. But you, if you're listening to this, you're not here to retreat. You're here to face what others avoid. That's what separates the average from the unbreakable. The defining line is not drawn in talent or luck. It's drawn in the mind, between those who turn back at discomfort and those who step forward anyway. This moment matters because the decision you make here echoes. It's the difference between repeating the same year of your life 30 times or building something that outlives you. The familiar road is lined with approval, comfort, and people who say, take it easy, don't push too hard, be realistic. But comfort is a liar. And realism? Often just fear in a well-tailored suit. You weren't built for safety, you were built for challenge, for clarity forged in fire. And yet most men settle, not because they're weak, but because the unfamiliar demands something they've never practiced. Courage without applause. The Stoics knew this. They trained not for victory, but for readiness. They did not chase ease, they invited difficulty. If you wish to improve, Epictetus said, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's the edge. That's the line where self-respect begins. When you stop living by what makes others comfortable and start choosing what makes you real. This isn't philosophy for comfort seekers. This is a discipline for men who know that nothing changes unless they step into the unknown alone. Look at David Goggins, a man who was once obese, broken, abused as a child, and working as a fumigator with no future. He had every reason to stay on the safe road, every excuse to quit before even beginning. But he chose the unfamiliar path, the one paved in pain, in rejection, in brutal honesty. He pushed his body through Navy SEAL hell weeks, ran ultra-marathons on broken legs, and authored Can't Hurt Me, a title that wasn't marketing, it was truth. Not because he was fearless, but because he decided the man he could become mattered more than the pain he'd have to endure to become him. That's what stepping to the edge looks like. Not glamorous, not easy, but necessary. You see, the road you're on now, it may feel familiar, manageable, even painless. But deep down, you know it leads nowhere new. You wake up tired, not from effort, but from stagnation. You scroll, distract, avoid. You call it figuring things out, but what you're doing is standing still. You're not lost, you're unchallenged. And challenge is where your spirit breathes. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something that truly scared you? Not reckless, but real. When did you last silence the opinions of others and move because you believed it was right? Growth doesn't live on the paved path. It hides in the dark trails, in the uphill climb, in the silence after the noise fades, and it's just you and your will. And maybe that's why most never find it, because it requires you to walk without a map, to act without permission, to believe without applause. But the unfamiliar does not mean lost. It means unmapped. It means no one else has drawn the route yet because it's yours to draw. And in that, there is power, real power. Not the kind handed to you by validation, but the kind you earn, one step, one fall, one rise at a time. There is no external glory here, only internal evolution. You become a different man on that road. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Still, the mind resists. It whispers fears dressed as logic. It says, what if I fail? What if I waste time? What if they laugh? But the Stoic answer is simple. So what? If failure is certain, why not fail forward? If time will pass anyway, why not use it building something worthy? If they laugh, let them, because your silence will outlast their noise. The man who walks into the storm isn't trying to look brave. He simply knows that the storm was never the enemy. It was the test. And that test is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not when you feel ready. Readiness is a myth. Action creates readiness. Discipline builds confidence. And clarity, it comes not before the step, but after you've taken it. You learn by doing, not thinking. You rise by moving, not hoping. And so you must choose. Stand here again or step forward, shaking, uncertain, but free. Your strength does not reveal itself in certainty. It reveals itself when you choose the unfamiliar anyway. When you walk the unwalked path because it calls something in you that comfort never could. Because even if you fall forward. Even if you break, you rebuild. And even if no one else sees it, you will know. You stood at the edge and you didn't flinch. You moved. And that changes everything. 2. Endure the path. Decide to continue. There's a point where every man wants to stop. He's not broken, just tired, burnt, worn thin. That moment is quiet, invisible to the world, but violent inside. And it's there, right there, where everything is decided. The mind whispers, you've done enough. Nobody will blame you if you quit now. But deep down, another voice stirs, rough and honest. This is exactly where you must keep going. The ability to endure when every cell in your body wants to give in. That is where real discipline begins. That's where transformation is forged. Not in motivation, not in victory, but in resistance. Continuing when it's hard is not about ego. It's not about pretending to be invincible. It's about becoming dependable to yourself. When you learn to keep walking while everything inside screams for you to stop, you start to earn self-respect. That's what Stoicism trains in you. Not emotional numbness, but the strength to hold your ground in chaos, to look suffering in the eye and still say, I am not done yet. Marcus Aurelius ruled during one of Rome's darkest periods. Wars pressing on every border, plagues killing thousands, betrayal from those closest to him. He could have collapsed under the weight. He had the power to escape, but instead he wrote. In the midst of blood and loss, he sat in silence and crafted meditations, not for praise, not for fame, but to stay centered. He didn't write from a mountaintop of peace. He wrote in the trenches of responsibility. Because endurance isn't poetic, it's practical. It's survival, chosen again and again. Pain doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're in the fight. It means you're not running anymore. Most people start over not because they lack talent, but because they stop when it gets hard. They hit a wall and convince themselves it must be a sign to stop. But what if the wall is not the end? What if it's the threshold? J.K. Rowling was a single mother living off government aid, typing in cafes with a baby beside her, drowning in rejection. 12 publishers told her no, told her Harry Potter wasn't good enough. But she didn't stop. She kept submitting. She kept believing. And when the 13th publisher said yes, the world changed. 7 books, over 500 million copies sold. Global phenomenon. But it wasn't genius that got her there. It was grit. She refused to let rejection be the final word. The point is not to admire others. The point is to realize they bled too. They broke. They questioned everything. But they kept going. And so can you. It's easy to romanticize success from the outside. But the truth is harsh. The road is lonely. The applause comes late, if ever. There will be mornings you wake up wondering why you even bother. Nights where your doubt drowns out every voice of reason. But the man who endures doesn't need permission. He knows his why. He doesn't wait for the perfect time, the right mood, or the green light. He walks anyway, not because he feels strong, but because he decided to act strong. And that's the difference. A decision, not a feeling, not inspiration. A raw, deliberate choice to move forward one more time, to rise from the floor, again. To push through resistance not because it's easy, but because it's yours to overcome. Every time you keep going, you widen the distance between the man you were and the man you're becoming. Stoicism doesn't promise ease. It doesn't offer shortcuts. It offers strength. And strength, like muscle, is built through resistance, through pain, through the repetition of showing up when no one sees, no one cheers, and no one helps. So when the road stretches long, when your energy runs low, and the progress feels invisible, you do not stop. You shift the weight, you reset your stance, and you take another step. Even if it's small, even if it's quiet, especially then. Because forward is forward, no matter the pace. You will be tempted to quit, and no one will stop you. That's the truth. No savior will pull you up. No voice will command you to rise. It must come from you. And that's exactly why it matters. Because the man who learns to keep going when it makes no sense, when everything inside him begs to rest, becomes dangerous in the best way. He becomes unshakable. And one day, you'll look back, not with regret, but with pride. Not because you never struggled, but because you refused to surrender. You'll remember the pain, the silence, the failure, but also the fire that kept you walking. Not the loud fire, the silent one, the steady one. The one you chose to keep alive. Keep going. Because this moment, the one you want to escape, is exactly where your power is waiting. 3. Know your why. Walk with inner fire. A man who never stops walking, even with bleeding feet, is a man who knows why he's walking in the first place. The world calls him obsessed. They say he's too intense, too relentless, too much. But they don't understand that he's not chasing something, he's answering something. A fire inside him won't let him rest. He doesn't move because it's easy. He moves because stopping would mean betrayal, not to others, to himself. Your purpose is not a slogan. It's not a line you put on your vision board. It's the reason you keep going when every logical thought tells you to quit. It's what whispers go when everything screams stop. Without it, discipline crumbles. Without it, hardship becomes suffering. But with it, suffering transforms into growth. That's why finding your why is not optional. It's essential. Because when purpose becomes your compass, pain becomes fuel. We live in a world full of noise. Goals copied from someone else's highlight reel. Success defined by metrics that mean nothing to your soul. It's easy to lose yourself chasing things that were never yours to begin with. But the Stoic doesn't follow trends. He follows truth. And truth lives in the quiet place where you ask yourself without ego, what am I really here to do? The answer won't always be grand. It won't always sound impressive. But if it's honest, it will hold. I remember a friend who used to be a high performer, CEO by 35, millionaire before 40. He had the house, the car, the private jet access. From the outside, it looked like he had it all. But what the world didn't see was that behind every deal, every flight, every polished photo, he was hollow. He had built everything on goals that weren't his. He followed what others called success. And one morning he just stopped, disappeared from social media, sold his company, moved into a small cabin in the woods. I visited him 2 years later. His eyes were clear, his voice was calm. He told me, I've never had less, but I've never been more on fire. What changed wasn't his wealth, it was his reason. He had finally remembered why he was alive, and everything after that felt light again. Your why doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It only has to set you on fire. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need a reason to wake up with intention. Purpose isn't about passion, it's about clarity. You can build a brutal routine, you can train harder than everyone, but if you don't know why you're doing it, it won't last. You'll give in the moment, pain knocks on your door, you'll quit the day, comfort returns. But when your actions align with purpose, the storm becomes a proving ground. That's why Marcus Aurelius didn't quit when Rome was bleeding. He didn't just lead armies, he led himself. In the chaos of plague and betrayal, he didn't write manifestos. He wrote to himself, in private, words that would never be posted, never be liked, never be shared, words that kept his soul anchored. He knew who he was and why he had to endure. That's fire, not loud, but eternal. If you haven't found your why, don't fake it, don't borrow someone else's mission. Sit with yourself in silence. Ask hard questions. What would I still do if no one ever applauded? What burns in me even when I'm tired? What do I want to be remembered for when this all ends? When you answer honestly, even if the answer scares you, write it down. Keep it visible. Not once, not someday. Every single day. In your mirror, on your wall, in your phone. This isn't poetry. This is survival. Purpose is your anchor when the wind turns violent. It's the voice that tells you to rise when you're face down in the dirt. And no, your why won't make everything easier, but it will make everything worth it. Because purpose gives pain a reason. It turns rejection into direction. It transforms silence into focus. It is the difference between movement and meaning. It's what separates the man who endures from the man who escapes. So find it, feed it, protect it. Because the day you stop walking with purpose, you start walking in circles. You weren't born to wander. You were born to move forward, with fire in your chest and clarity in your eyes. And if that fire fades, light it again, with action, with truth, with refusal to live someone else's life. This is not just a path, it's your mission. And a man with a mission is unstoppable. 4. Build the bridge. Let goals shape the journey. What exactly are you aiming at? If I asked you right now what your mission is, could you answer without hesitation? Most men can't. And that's why they drift. They wake up tired not because they've worked hard, but because their direction is unclear. You can have all the potential in the world, but if you're walking without a target, you're only moving in circles. The mind, like a muscle, needs direction. Discipline dies in vagueness. Fire fades when there's no structure to hold it. That's why dreams without goals don't lead to transformation. They lead to frustration. You say you want change, you want progress, you want to become something more. Then write it down. Not in your head, not someday. On paper, today. And not just what you want, but when, why, and what it demands. Because vague dreams produce vague results. But when you translate a dream into concrete goals, you stop fantasizing. You start building. This is not about becoming obsessed with productivity. This is about reclaiming control of your time, your energy, your attention. It's about making each day a step across the bridge from where you are to who you must become. You don't need grand gestures, you need clear checkpoints. A man becomes unstoppable, not by sheer desire, but by direction. I've seen this shift in real time. A guy I worked with once came to me completely burned out. Trained like a beast, read every book, but still felt stuck. Why? Because his goals were wishful slogans. Get better, be successful. That's not a target. That's a bumper sticker. So we broke it down. What does better mean? In what area? By when? What metric? We wrote it. 1 goal, 3 deadlines, daily accountability. 6 months later, he wasn't just stronger, he was different. Not because he wanted it more, but because now he knew exactly where he was going and why each day mattered. This is how a Stoic moves. Not blindly, not chaotically, but with precision. Clarity is power, and goals bring clarity. Even Marcus Aurelius, in the heart of empire surrounded by war, wrote daily reflections. He didn't just govern the world, he governed his mind. That's structure, that's intention, that's a man who knows his direction. He didn't write poetry to impress philosophers. He wrote to anchor himself in what mattered and eliminate what didn't. That's what goals do, they cut the noise. And the truth is, setting goals is not complicated. What's hard is committing to them when no one's watching. That's the fight. Not with the world, but with the parts of you that still want comfort more than clarity. So here's what you do. Find 20 minutes. Sit alone, no phone, no noise. Ask one question. What would a better version of me do today that I keep putting off? Don't overthink it. Write the first 3 answers that come. One of them is your next goal. Now ask, what's the first step? What would progress look like in 7 days? Not perfection, progress. When you break the mental fog with a clear target, the resistance weakens. You stop wandering, you start becoming. And this isn't just a system, it's a way of living. Stoicism isn't about suppressing ambition. It's about refining it, turning aimless energy into focused power. Because every man fights 2 battles, the one outside and the one inside. The constant pull toward distraction, comfort, delay. Goals are not cages, they are compasses. They don't trap you, they free you from being ruled by emotion, by circumstance, by others' opinions. When you know what you're building, you stop explaining yourself to everyone else. Still, don't expect it to be easy. There will be days when the dream feels distant, when the steps feel small, when progress seems invisible. That's when your system saves you. That's when your structure becomes your shield. Because emotion lies, fatigue lies, but your plan, it keeps you grounded. And each time you check off one more step, something changes inside. The mind sharpens, the body follows, identity shifts, and maybe that's the most powerful part. It's not just about results, it's about who you become through the repetition. The man who honors his own word. The man who gets up because the calendar says it's time to act, not because he feels like it. That's what real strength looks like. Quiet, relentless, unshakable. So stop waiting for a breakthrough. Build the bridge, define the target, set the pace. You don't need perfect clarity for the next 10 years. You just need to own the next 10 days. And when doubt creeps in, don't debate it. Return to the page. Return to your list. Return to the mission. Because the world doesn't move for men who hope. It moves for those who decide. Every brick you lay is a declaration. Every small win is a promise kept. And in time, when you look back across the bridge you've built, you'll know you didn't just walk the path, you created it. Walk alone. Let their doubt die in silence. They won't believe in you. Not at first. Maybe not ever. You'll walk into rooms where no one sees your worth, speak dreams that get laughed at, and take steps no one understands. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Greatness never begins with applause. It begins in silence, in isolation, in the gut-wrenching choice to move forward without support, without recognition, without certainty. The ability to walk alone, fully, quietly, relentlessly, is one of the rarest forms of strength, and it's one that the modern man must reclaim. Most people follow the noise. They need external validation like oxygen. But the Stoic man doesn't need to be seen to be certain. He doesn't need permission to take action. He walks his path because he knows it is his. And that internal conviction, that anchor, is what allows him to move through the world with quiet intensity, even when surrounded by doubt. Muhammad Ali understood this long before the world did. Before he became the heavyweight champion of the world, before the medals, before the millions, he said it plainly. I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. The world laughed. They called him arrogant, loud, delusional. But Ali wasn't just talking. He was declaring a truth he hadn't lived yet, but was willing to die for. He trained in silence. He bled in the gym. He believed so loudly that the world eventually had no choice but to listen. Not because he argued with the critics, but because he became undeniable. That's what it means to walk alone. It means being misunderstood. It means carrying your fire when no one else sees the flame. It means showing up day after day, doing the work with no audience, and letting your results silence the room. There is something sacred about enduring without applause, something powerful in mastering the art of solitude. It's not about isolation for the sake of pride. It's about building resilience that doesn't break under scrutiny. The men who change the world are never the ones who wait for consensus. They don't pitch their dreams for approval. They build them in silence, brick by brick, while others talk. They are not addicted to being understood. They are addicted to being aligned. That's why the path to becoming who you are meant to be often begins with losing the crowd. Walking alone reveals what truly drives you. When the noise fades and the praise disappears, only two voices remain, your fear and your discipline. And whichever one you listen to decides everything. Fear will keep you still. Discipline will keep you walking. And in time, your path becomes your proof. If you find yourself surrounded by doubt, good. If people mock your dream, perfect. That's fuel. Not for revenge, but for refinement. Let their disbelief sharpen your focus. Let it push you deeper into your process. Don't speak, build. Don't argue, evolve. Don't explain, execute. Because eventually, the results will speak in a language louder than words. A man I once trained with had a vision so big, even his family told him to shrink it. Be realistic, they said. That's not for people like us. He listened once. For a year, he lived small. He worked a job that drained him. He kept his dreams to himself. And then one day, something snapped. He disappeared for a while, went quiet, started waking up at 4 a.m., writing business plans, lifting weights, teaching himself coding, saving every dollar. 2 years later, he launched a company that outperformed every competitor in his space. Same guy, different choice. He didn't convince anyone. He just became the man they said he couldn't be. And when he returned, no one had anything left to say. That's the power of walking alone. It breaks you, but it also builds you. It strips away the ego, the need for applause, the shallow cravings for approval. What's left is pure fire. Not loud, not showy, just unshakable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to clap. You just need to keep walking, step by step, in silence. in truth. So when you stand at the edge of something new and no one stands with you, don't step back. Don't beg for validation. Don't explain yourself into exhaustion. Step forward, quietly, boldly, and let history do the talking. The ones who mocked Ali now quote him. The ones who doubted you will one day use your name in stories of perseverance, but only if you keep walking, especially when you walk alone. 6. Flow like water. Adapt without losing yourself. A man who survives every storm is not the strongest. He's the most fluid. He bends where others break. He adjusts when others resist. He moves like water, not because he's weak, but because he understands the world will not slow down for him to catch his breath. And still, he moves forward. While many confuse stubbornness with strength, the Stoic knows real strength is not in rigidity. It's in the discipline to evolve, to pivot, to change course without changing core. You will face moments when your plan crumbles, when the structure you built no longer fits the shape of reality. What will you do then? Rage against it? Cling to a system that no longer works? Or will you adapt, deliberately, without panic, without losing who you are? The reason this matters is simple. Progress only exists if you keep moving. And movement, in a world that constantly shifts, requires something more than force. It requires flexibility with direction, discipline with range, power with precision. This is where philosophy becomes practical. Seneca, a Roman Stoic statesman, didn't write for scholars. He wrote for men at war with unpredictability, exiled from Rome, hunted by power, betrayed by the court, and still his words held. Still he reminded us, fate leads the willing, drags the unwilling. You don't always control what happens, but you control whether you fight the current or learn to ride it. You control whether you shatter or shift. And that choice defines the rest of your path. There is nothing stoic about stubbornness for its own sake. To insist on doing things the old way in a world that has already changed is not discipline. It's blindness. Even your routines must be reviewed. Your strategies re-examined. What worked last year may not serve you now. What once brought results might now bring stagnation. Your values stay constant, yes, but your method must be alive. Stoicism is not a statue, it's a sword you sharpen daily. It adapts with you. It's forged in the fire of what is, not what should be. Think of your goals not as a single straight road, but a map with many routes. When one path blocks you, don't stand there complaining. Don't curse the terrain. Change your footing, find a new angle, train a new skill. Ask better questions. Most men wait for the world to adjust. They demand certainty before they act. But that's not how this works. Action creates clarity. Adaptation creates advantage. The moment you stop expecting things to go according to plan is the moment you become dangerous to anything trying to stop you. This doesn't mean you compromise who you are. It means you protect who you are by refusing to be frozen. You don't abandon your mission. You recalibrate your path. You don't lose your identity. You refine it through fire, failure, and the friction of real life. A Stoic understands, life doesn't ask for your approval before it shifts. It shifts, and your power lies in how fast you adjust without losing your truth. Every battlefield evolves, so must the warrior. Whether it's your career, your training, your relationship, or your inner code, adaptation is not surrender. It is the strategic use of awareness. You can either charge into a wall out of pride, or pivot toward a door with precision. You can hold your ground and rot in place, or shift your stance and keep rising. That's why today, if something in your life feels off course, off pace, off balance, you don't need to burn everything down. You need to adapt. Take inventory. What's outdated? What still serves your purpose? What do you need to let go of, not because it's wrong, but because you've outgrown it? Ask these questions not in panic, but in strength. The goal isn't to react. The goal is to respond with clarity and conviction. There will be days when flexibility feels like weakness, when changing your method feels like failure. But it's not. It's the mark of mastery. The Stoic is not static. He flows. He sharpens. He listens, not to the noise, but to reality. He doesn't fear change. He reads it, studies it, and lets it refine his process. So stop clinging to the old way just because it's familiar. Start moving like a man who knows he can navigate anything. Let go of the illusion that the road must be straight. Sometimes the curve is the way. Sometimes what looks like detour is the real path forward. And when the next wave comes, and it will, don't resist. Rise with it. flow through it. Like water through stone, make your way forward, not by force but by form. The man who adapts does not disappear. He becomes inevitable. 7. Fortify the mind. Rule from within. A man who controls his mind walks through fire without flinching, not because the fire doesn't burn, but because he has trained himself not to panic when it does. While others crumble at the first sign of pressure, he remains still. While the world chases distractions, he turns inward. Because he understands, the true battlefield is not outside, it's inside. And the enemy is not chaos, it's undisciplined thought. It's self-pity. It's the silent whisper that says, "This is too much," and the choice to believe it. You cannot endure the world if you do not first conquer yourself. Everything begins in the mind. Every habit, every failure, every breakthrough, every storm, your reactions, your focus, your resilience. All of it flows from the fortress within, and if that fortress is weak, no amount of success outside will last. If you are undisciplined in thought, your victories will collapse under their own weight. But when your mind is trained, even defeat cannot break you. It becomes fuel. That's why the Stoics placed so much weight on inner mastery, not for philosophy's sake, but because they knew you don't rise in life by chance. You rise by choosing what to allow in your mind and what to crush before it grows. They treated the mind like a city, one that must be protected, reinforced, and ruled with clarity. Let in fear, and it spreads like fire. Let in doubt, and it infects everything. Let in chaos, and you'll start calling noise your normal. Building mental strength doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness, and it starts with one discipline. Catch your thoughts before they become commands. The moment a thought says, "I can't," don't argue, act. The moment of fear says, "It's too late," don't freeze, move. Thought is not fact. Emotion is not instruction. And you are not your impulses. You are the one who observes them and decides what to do next. This isn't about pretending to be fearless. It's about building a filter strong enough to recognize fear without obeying it. The modern world is designed to flood you with noise, to keep your mind reactive, to keep you addicted to escape, scrolling, numbing, avoiding. But the Stoic path is brutal in its clarity. It demands that you stop outsourcing your peace. Stop blaming your past. Stop waiting for silence from the world to find stillness in yourself. You make it, you own it, you become it. So how do you build that kind of mind? Start with your mornings. The first 10 minutes. Before the world grabs you, grab your thoughts. Sit in silence. Write down what you will face. Predict the resistance. Expect the pushback. Then declare who you'll be in it. This small act rewires your nervous system. You're no longer reacting, you're leading from within. You're not a man pushed around by circumstances. You're the one who responds, not the one who explodes. That difference? That's leadership, and it starts in the mirror. Throughout the day, train your focus like you train your body. One rep at a time. When your mind wanders, pull it back. When anxiety shows up, breathe, don't run. When your ego flares, pause, don't defend. These are the tiny moments most men waste, but they're exactly where you gain ground. Discipline is not loud. It doesn't shout. It sharpens in quiet repetition. And it rewires who you are, thought by thought, until your default setting is calm under pressure. You don't need more motivation. You need more control, more silence in your head, more power in your response. That's why the Stoics trained the mind like a soldier, relentless, alert, prepared. Because they knew, a man who rules himself cannot be ruled by anything else. Not failure, not fear, not rejection. He doesn't need everything to go right. He just needs to remain unmoved when it goes wrong. There will be days when your mind turns against you, when doubt knocks louder than discipline, when old patterns beg to return. That's when the real fight begins. And you don't win it by force. You win it by practice, by choosing again and again to return to your principles, by refusing to let temporary emotion rewrite permanent values. When you build that kind of mind, life doesn't get easier, but you become unshakable in it. So fortify your thoughts. Guard your attention like a warrior guards a gate. Let no excuse cross without challenge. Let no weakness linger without action. And when the pressure comes, and it will, you'll no longer collapse. You'll stand. Because you've trained for this. Because your mind doesn't beg for escape. It commands endurance. It doesn't retreat into doubt. It advances into discipline. In a world obsessed with image, be the man who builds from within. In a world drunk on distraction, Be the one who stays still. Because when your mind becomes your fortress, no storm can take you down. 8. Act relentlessly. Let action speak your truth. A flame does not prove its existence by making noise. It proves it by burning. In the same way, a man does not affirm who he is by talking, he proves it by doing. In a world obsessed with performance and pretense, the one who moves in silence, who acts without the need for praise, becomes unstoppable. Because what defines a man is not what he says he will do, but what he continues to do, long after the emotion is gone. That is where the real war is fought, between the impulse to pause and the command to push, between delay and discipline, between the version of you that talks and the version that finishes. There is no power in potential unless it is converted into action. You can dream with intensity, write down your purpose, recite affirmations with fire, but if it ends there, nothing changes. Ideas without action are just comforting lies. The only way forward is movement. Daily, deliberate, repetitive, not exciting, not sexy, but necessary. That is the battlefield most men never enter. Because this one does not reward imagination, it rewards consistency. It rewards the man who shows up even when no one is watching, especially then. This is the Stoic approach. They did not wait for the right mood. They didn't chase passion. They built momentum through discipline. First, tell yourself what kind of man you want to be, said Epictetus, then do what you have to do. Not someday, not when convenient, now. Because every moment you hesitate, the weaker voice in you gets louder, and that voice will offer you every excuse dressed in comfort. You're tired, you've done enough, this can wait. But if you listen, if you pause, you lose ground. Not outside, inside. That's why action is not just execution, it is identity. Every time you move, you reinforce who you are becoming. Every time you delay, you strengthen who you were. It is that simple. That brutal and that true. You either build the habit of showing up or you build the habit of quitting. And every day, every decision adds weight to one side of that scale. Which version of you are you feeding? There is a reason the Stoics prized action over theory, because they understood life is short and the window for impact is small. You cannot afford to wait, not for motivation, not for clarity, not for approval. You act first, and through that act, the clarity comes. You build belief through effort. You build momentum by moving, not by overthinking. That's what separates the disciplined from the drifter. Not how inspired they feel, but how relentlessly they move anyway. Even now, you know what you should be doing. The action is not hidden. It's not some mysterious breakthrough waiting to happen. It's the simple, often boring step you've been avoiding. The hard conversation, the early wake-up, the extra rep, the next email, the habit you keep skipping because it's uncomfortable. That's the one. That's the step that reclaims your power. Because the path to becoming who you were meant to be is not made in leaps. It is laid one deliberate brick at a time. And yet, the resistance will never go away. So stop waiting for it to disappear. Stop hoping for ease. Start expecting resistance. Respect it, but don't obey it. Feel it, but don't stop for it. That's the rule. You rise when it gets hard, not when it gets easy. Because the truth is, your actions are your only proof. The world doesn't care what you believe. It watches what you repeat. And if you show up enough for long enough, even your doubts will start to believe in you. This is how greatness is built. Not in a moment of lightning, but in the storm that follows. The grind. The quiet, relentless refusal to stop. That's the fire. That's the edge. And once you tap into that rhythm, you no longer need permission to act. You no longer need applause. You act because that's who you are. And you let your work speak what your mouth never needs to say. So if you're tired of starting over, stop stopping. If you want a different life, act like the man who lives it. Speak less. Do more. Move through the noise like a ghost with a mission. Don't explain. Execute. Don't debate, deliver. And every time you want to quit, take another step. Because that step is the difference. That step is the transformation. That step is the declaration, I am not finished. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them underestimate. Just act. Until your presence becomes your proof. Until your silence becomes your strength. Until your results speak the only truth that matters. In this life, no one rises by accident. Strength is not gifted. It is forged. Through resistance, through repetition, through quiet decisions made when no one is watching. The Stoic path isn't loud, it's not always glamorous, but it's real. It demands that you choose discomfort over ease, discipline over emotion, and purpose over impulse every single day. You've walked with us through each chapter. From standing at the edge of the unknown, choosing courage over comfort, to learning how to endure when everything screams for you to quit. You've seen how purpose fuels your progress, how goals give structure to your vision, and how silence, solitude, and action build an unshakable core. Every step you take forward is a battle won, not against the world, but against the weaker version of you. Now it's time to do more than listen. It's time to apply. Begin where you are. Not tomorrow, not when life is easier. Start now with one decision, one habit, one action. Let the words from today become the fire for your routine. Make self-discipline, mental toughness, and emotional control your daily practice. Don't wait for motivation. Train your mind to act regardless of how you feel. And when the path gets hard, and it will, remember what you've built inside. Return to the lessons. Return to the process. Rise again. That's how Stoic resilience is born. Not in talk, but in action. Not in one day, but every day. If this message resonates with you, share your thoughts. Tell us how you're pushing forward. Share your journey in the comments below. Your story may be the light someone else needs to keep going. And that's how we rise, together, but unshakable within.